Flight information. Flight number, Pacific Atlantic Flight 782. Airline, Pacific Atlantic Airways. Aircraft, Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner. Date, October 18. Route, London Heathrow, Wright Arrow, Boston Logan International Airport. Passengers, 210. Crew, 12. Total souls on board, 222. Weather, smooth skies over Europe. Light jet stream across the Atlantic. Thin cloud layers. Good visibility. Everything suggested this would become one of the easiest crossings of the week. Nobody knew history was quietly preparing another story. Scene 1, another ordinary morning. Narration. The terminal at Heathrow Airport buzzed with thousands of travelers. Families hugged goodbye. Business travelers checked emails. Children stared through giant windows at aircraft preparing for departure. Flight 782 sat at Gate B42. Its white fuselage reflected the morning sunrise. Ground crews loaded hundreds of bags. Fuel trucks disconnected. Catering workers rolled away. Inside the cockpit, Captain Daniel Mercer completed the final paperwork. 27 years. Over 15,000 flight hours. He had crossed the Atlantic more than 400 times. Beside him sat First Officer Elena Brooks. Young, precise, exceptionally respected. Together, they were considered one of the airline's strongest crews. Nothing appeared unusual. Nothing seemed wrong. Pilot dialogue. Captain Mercer. Fuel. First Officer Brooks. Confirmed. Captain. Weather. First Officer. Smooth almost the entire route. Captain. Any maintenance items? First Officer. Negative. Captain smiled. Looks like we'll be home before dinner. Passenger reactions. Passengers slowly filled the cabin. A retired couple settled into row 18. A university soccer team occupied the rear cabin. Parents comforted nervous children. Among them, seat 14A, 11-year-old Noah Karcher, traveling with his mother. Quiet, curious. Unlike most children, he wasn't watching cartoons. He was watching the cockpit through the boarding door every chance he got. Technical explanation. Before every flight, pilots perform dozens of checks. Fuel, navigation, weather, aircraft systems, hydraulics, electrical power. Every item must be verified before pushback. Modern airliners are designed with multiple backup systems. Failures are extremely rare. Suspense ending. Everything checked out perfectly, but hidden deep inside the aircraft, one tiny electronic component had already begun failing. No one noticed. Not yet. Scene 2, the boy who loved airplanes. Narration. Noah had dreamed about airplanes since he was 5. He could recognize aircraft by the sound of their engines. He memorized airport layouts. He built hundreds of model aircraft. His bedroom walls were covered with aviation charts. His father, a former aircraft mechanic, had taught him something unusual. Never touch an airplane, but always understand it. That lesson stayed with him. Even today. Passenger dialogue. Mother, you packed your tablet. Noah smiled. I packed my flight notebook. She laughed. Of course you did. Technical explanation. Many aviation enthusiasts study cockpit layouts using publicly available simulators. Learning what switches do is very different from actually flying an aircraft. Operating a real airliner requires extensive professional training. Suspense ending. Little did Noah know. Everything he had ever learned would soon be tested in ways no child should ever experience. Scene 3: Departure. Narration. The cabin doors closed. Ground power disconnected. The Dreamliner's engines came alive. Massive Rolls-Royce Trent engines slowly increased in power. The aircraft pushed back. Passengers barely noticed. To them, it was simply another flight. Pilot dialogue. Ground. Pacific Atlantic 782, pushback approved. Captain. Push approved. After engine start. Ground. Taxi via Alpha Bravo. Captain. Alpha Bravo. ATC dialogue. Tower. Flight 782, wind 260 at 8 knots. Runway 27 right cleared for takeoff. Captain. Cleared for takeoff. Passenger reactions. Some watched through windows. Others slept. Seat belts clicked. Children laughed. Coffee cups trembled slightly. No one imagined what was waiting beyond the clouds. Technical explanation. During takeoff, pilots carefully monitor engine performance, airspeed, and flight controls. Even after liftoff, the aircraft follows automated guidance while pilots continuously supervise every system. Suspense ending. The aircraft lifted smoothly into the morning sky. Behind them, London disappeared beneath the clouds. Ahead, something invisible was already beginning to fail. Scene 4: Climbing into calm skies. Narration. Flight 782 climbed steadily toward cruising altitude. The seat belt sign switched off. Cabin crew began meal preparations. Passengers relaxed. Children watched movies. Noah glanced occasionally toward the front of the cabin, fascinated by every sound the aircraft made. The engines hummed with reassuring consistency. Outside, the Atlantic stretched endlessly beneath scattered clouds. For nearly 2 hours, the flight was exactly what everyone expected: quiet, smooth, and uneventful. Pilot dialogue. First Officer Brooks. Cruise level 370. Captain Mercer. Everything looks good. First Officer. ETA unchanged. Captain. Let's keep an eye on that weather line west of Shannon. ATC dialogue. ATC. Pacific Atlantic 782. Maintain flight level 370. Captain. Maintaining flight level 370. Flight 782. Passenger reactions. A flight attendant handed Noah a small pair of plastic pilot wings. He smiled proudly and clipped them to his shirt. His mother teased, "Now you look like you're in charge." Noah laughed. "I wish." Technical explanation. Once an aircraft reaches cruise altitude, the autopilot usually flies the planned route while pilots monitor weather, fuel, navigation, and aircraft systems. Even with automation, the crew remains responsible for every aspect of the flight. Suspense ending. The cabin settled into peaceful silence. But then, a tiny caution light illuminated on the captain's instrument panel. It disappeared almost as quickly as it had appeared. Neither pilot realized it was the first warning of a much larger problem. Scene 5: The warning that wouldn't stay silent. Narration. 2 hours and 43 minutes after departing London, Flight 782 was more than halfway across the Atlantic. Outside the windows, there was nothing but layers of white clouds below and an endless blue sky above. Inside the cockpit, everything appeared routine. Captain Daniel Mercer reviewed the flight management system, while First Officer Elena Brooks monitored fuel burn against the flight plan. The aircraft was performing flawlessly. Cabin crew were collecting lunch trays. Passengers had settled into the quiet rhythm of a long-haul flight. Some watched movies. Others slept. A baby had finally stopped crying. For nearly 20 minutes, the cabin was so peaceful that the only sounds were the soft hum of the engines and the occasional clink of dishes in the galley. Then, a sharp electronic chime echoed through the cockpit. Ding! Captain Mercer looked toward the engine indication and crew alerting system. One amber message had appeared. Air data disagree. It wasn't a warning pilots saw often. The captain calmly studied it. It could be a faulty sensor. First Officer Brooks nodded. Cross-checking now. The warning disappeared. Both pilots exchanged a quick glance. False warnings occasionally happened. The aircraft still behaved normally. Airspeed was stable. Altitude was perfect. Autopilot remained engaged. There was no immediate danger. Or so it seemed. 30 seconds later. Another chime. Then another. This time 3 separate messages flashed almost simultaneously. The cockpit suddenly felt much smaller. Pilot dialogue. Captain Mercer. That's strange. First Officer Brooks. I'm comparing the standby instruments. Captain. Do you trust your airspeed? First Officer. It matches mine, mostly. Captain. Mostly isn't good enough. ATC dialogue. Shanwick Control. Pacific Atlantic 782. Confirm maintaining flight level 370. Captain. Affirm maintaining 370. Everything still sounded perfectly normal over the radio. But inside the cockpit, the crew had begun asking questions no pilot ever wants to ask. Passenger reactions. Nobody in the cabin noticed. A businessman continued typing. A little girl colored inside an activity book. Noah looked out the window at the wing, flexing gently in the wind. Something about the engine sounded different. He couldn't explain why. Only that years of listening to aircraft had made him notice subtle changes. His mother smiled. What are you looking at? The airplane. It sounds different. She laughed softly. You're imagining things. But Noah wasn't imagining anything. Technical explanation. Modern airliners rely on several air data computers that calculate airspeed, altitude, and other flight information using pressure sensors outside the aircraft. If these computers disagree, pilots compare multiple instruments to determine which information is reliable. The airplane is designed with redundancy, but conflicting data can quickly increase the crew's workload. Suspense ending. The warning disappeared again. But this time, it left something far more dangerous behind. Doubt. Scene 6. Turbulence that shouldn't exist. Narration. Minutes later, the Boeing 787 entered an area of perfectly clear sky. Weather radar showed nothing. Satellite reports showed nothing. The route ahead looked flawless. Yet without warning. Thump. The aircraft jolted violently upward. Passengers gasped. Coffee splashed across tray tables. Seatbelt signs illuminated automatically. Then came another jolt. Even stronger. The airplane rolled several degrees to the right before correcting itself. Captain Mercer frowned. This isn't on the forecast. First Officer Brooks checked the weather display again. It's completely clean. Another violent shake hit the aircraft. The overhead bins rattled. A flight attendant, nearly lost her balance while securing the galley. Noah instinctively looked toward the wings. They're moving a lot. His mother grabbed his hand. It's okay. She hoped she was right. Pilot dialogue. Captain. Seatbelt sign. First officer. Already on. Captain. Let's slow down. First officer. Reducing speed. ATC dialogue. Captain. Shanwick, Flight 782, reporting unexpected moderate to severe turbulence. ATC. Flight 782, negative reports from nearby traffic. Captain Mercer exchanged another concerned glance with his first officer. If nobody else was experiencing turbulence, why were they? Passenger reactions. Whispers spread across the cabin. Was that normal? I've never felt turbulence like that. A flight attendant reassured everyone with a practiced smile. Please remain seated with your seat belts fastened. She sounded confident. She didn't feel confident. Technical explanation. Clear air turbulence can occur without visible clouds and may not appear on weather radar. Pilots rely on forecasts and reports from other aircraft, but some turbulence develops unexpectedly due to changes in wind speed and atmospheric conditions. Suspense ending. Then, the cockpit warning system chimed again. Only this time, it wasn't amber. It was red. Scene 7, the red warning. Narration. Every pilot knows one truth. Amber warnings demand attention. Red warnings demand immediate action. Across both primary flight displays flashed the words, "Flight control fault." An alarm filled the cockpit. The autopilot disconnected with its unmistakable warning tone. Beep, beep, beep. The control column vibrated. Captain Mercer immediately gripped the yoke. I have control. The aircraft began banking left. Not sharply, but steadily, as if an invisible hand had grabbed the wing. Captain Mercer corrected. The airplane responded. Slowly. Too slowly. Pilot dialogue. Captain. I have control. First officer. You have control. Captain. Run the checklist. First officer. Flight control malfunction. She stopped. Another message interrupted the checklist. ATC dialogue. Captain. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Pacific Atlantic 782. We have a flight control malfunction. Maintaining control at present. Stand by. The words sounded calm, but every controller listening knew something serious was unfolding. Passenger reactions. The aircraft rolled gently left, then right. Passengers looked around. The movement didn't feel like turbulence anymore. It felt wrong. Noah tightened his seat belt. He watched the wing carefully. It's correcting too slowly. His mother stared. What? He didn't answer. His eyes never left the wing. Technical explanation. If autopilot disconnects because of conflicting flight control information, pilots immediately hand-fly the aircraft while diagnosing the problem. Even though modern aircraft have multiple backups, unexpected control behavior significantly increases workload. Suspense ending. Then, without warning, Captain Mercer suddenly stopped speaking. He stared ahead. His hand loosened on the controls. Something was terribly wrong. Scene 8, silence in the cockpit. Narration. First Officer Brooks turned toward the captain. His face had gone pale. He blinked once, twice, then collapsed sideways against his shoulder harness. Captain. She reached toward him, while trying to keep one hand on the controls. The aircraft drifted again. She struggled to stabilize it. Her breathing became faster. The workload doubled instantly. Cabin crew had no idea what had happened. Passengers only noticed another gentle bank. Then, the first officer herself winced in pain. She placed a hand against her forehead. Her vision blurred. The cockpit seemed to spin. She fought to remain conscious. Pilot dialogue. First officer. Captain. Captain respond. Nothing. She keyed the radio. This is Flight 782. Captain incapacitated. Her sentence never finished. Her voice weakened. ATC dialogue. ATC. Flight 782, say again. Flight 782. Radio check. Silence. Passenger reactions. The cabin remained unaware. But one flight attendant noticed something unusual. No routine cockpit update. No response to the interphone. She called again. Nothing. A knot formed in her stomach. She hurried toward the cockpit door. Technical explanation. Commercial aircraft are designed so either pilot can fly alone if necessary. However, losing one pilot while managing multiple aircraft system failures creates an extremely demanding emergency that requires rapid coordination and strict procedures. Suspense ending. The flight attendant knocked once. Then harder. No answer. Inside the cockpit. Time was running out. Scene 9, the cockpit door opens. Narration. The pounding on the cockpit door grew louder. Senior flight attendant Sarah Collins knew something was terribly wrong. The interphone had gone silent. No routine updates. No acknowledgement. Nothing. Following emergency procedures, she entered the cockpit. The sight froze her in place. Captain Mercer was slumped in his seat, unconscious. First Officer Brooks was barely responsive, struggling to stay awake while trying to control an aircraft that was no longer flying smoothly. Warning tones echoed through the cockpit. The airplane drifted several degrees off course. Sarah immediately strapped the captain's seat backward to make room and called the cabin. Medical emergency in the cockpit. We need any qualified medical personnel immediately. Pilot dialogue. First Officer Brooks weakly. I can't lose control. Sarah. You're not alone, stay with me. ATC dialogue. Gander control. Flight 782, radar indicates you're deviating from course. State your intentions. First Officer. Medical emergency, requesting immediate assistance. Passenger reactions. The calm cabin transformed in seconds. Doctors identified themselves. Nurses rushed forward. Passengers looked at one another, realizing this was no ordinary delay. Among them, Noah quietly watched as the cockpit door remained open. Technical explanation. Commercial aircraft have procedures for pilot incapacitation. Cabin crew can assist while medically qualified passengers help stabilize the crew. Air traffic control immediately coordinates priority handling. Suspense ending. But the first officer's strength was fading, and the airplane still needed someone to help her communicate. Scene 10, the boy who stayed calm. Narration. Sarah noticed Noah standing nearby. She remembered the boy who had spent half the flight asking thoughtful questions about airplanes. She knelt beside him. Noah, I need you to do something very important. He nodded without hesitation. She handed him the headset. When I tell you, repeat exactly what the controller says, nothing more. His small hands trembled, but his voice remained steady. ATC dialogue. Gander control. Flight 782, maintain current altitude. Continue straight ahead. Emergency services are standing by. Noah reading carefully. Maintain current altitude. Continue straight ahead. The exhausted first officer heard every word. She acknowledged and followed the instructions. Passenger reactions. No one expected an 11-year-old to become part of the communication chain. Yet his calm voice helped reduce confusion during one of the busiest moments of the flight. Technical explanation. Flying the airplane remained entirely the responsibility of the qualified pilot. Clear communication, however, is critical during emergencies, and anyone capable of accurately relaying instructions can assist the crew. Suspense ending. The nearest airport was still more than 20 minutes away. The aircraft had to stay under control until then. Scene 11, the longest descent. Narration. The first officer focused every ounce of energy on one task: keep the aircraft stable. Doctors worked continuously on the captain. Cabin crew coordinated emergency preparations. ATC cleared every aircraft out of Flight 782's path. The Dreamliner began a slow descent. Passengers looked out their windows. Emergency vehicles were already gathering beside the runway. The reality finally set in. This wasn't a precaution. This was an emergency landing. Pilot dialogue. First Officer Brooks. Flaps and checklist. Sarah carefully read each checklist item, aloud from the quick reference handbook. The first officer confirmed each action. Years of training took over. Passenger reactions. Many passengers held hands. Some prayed quietly. Others recorded final messages for loved ones. The cabin had become completely silent. Technical explanation. Emergency descents and approaches rely on standardized checklists designed to reduce workload and ensure critical steps are not missed under extreme pressure. Suspense ending. Runway in sight. One chance. No second attempt. Scene 12, the landing. Narration. The runway lights stretched ahead. The first officer gripped the controls. Crosswind gusts nudged the aircraft. She corrected gently. The landing gear locked down. 1,000 feet. 500. Approaching minimums. The aircraft crossed the runway threshold. Main landing gear touched first. A heartbeat later, the nose wheel settled onto the runway. Reverse thrust roared. The aircraft slowed. Then, it stopped. For several seconds, no one moved. Then applause erupted throughout the cabin. Many passengers cried openly. Emergency crews surrounded the aircraft. Every one of the 222 people on board had survived. ATC dialogue. Tower. Flight 782, welcome back. Emergency crews are approaching. First officer. A thank you. Suspense ending. But investigators still didn't know what had caused the emergency. Scene 13, the investigation. Narration. The flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder revealed a rare combination of events. An electronic flight control fault had increased the crew's workload. At nearly the same time, Captain Mercer suffered a sudden medical emergency. The first officer became partially impaired from fatigue and stress, but remained conscious enough to continue flying with assistance. Investigators found no evidence of mechanical negligence by the airline. Instead, they highlighted how training, cockpit resource management, cabin crew coordination, medical volunteers, and air traffic controllers worked together. No single person saved Flight 782. Everyone did. Ending. Narration. Months later, Captain Mercer recovered after treatment. First Officer Elena Brooks returned to flying following medical evaluation and additional training. Sarah Collins received the airline's highest award for professionalism. The doctors who volunteered were honored for their quick action. And Noah, the quiet 11-year-old in seat 14A, never claimed to have flown the airplane. Whenever reporters asked him what happened, he gave the same answer. The pilots flew the airplane. I just listened carefully and helped when someone needed me. That humility became the story's lasting lesson. Because aviation has never been about heroes working alone. It is about preparation, training, teamwork, and ordinary people staying calm when extraordinary moments demand it. On that day, 222 people walked away safely, not because of one miracle, but because every person who could help chose to do exactly that. Fade to black. The end.